Hello everybody, I'm Avian and we are making a Stardew Valley mod how-to series using my mod, The Garden Cottage. I am ready to add in a couple new characters, so I thought this video would be a good way to show you how to do character data. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to start with the wiki. So on the Stardew Valley Modders Wiki, and I will put this link in the description, they have a NPC data dedicated page. And basically, this is going to be just like any other wiki page we've looked at, where they give you your field name and what it does. And what you do is you input this into your JSON with your true, false, a string value, whatever is needed by that field to go through. As well as things like, can they receive gifts? Are they a romantic interest? Social tab information. What their dumpster dive default is. Are they angry? Do they care? And a couple things. Appearance. There's a whole lot here. So we'll go through some of this. There is an important note to be aware of is you can set up a NPC background type character like Gunther or Marlin or Gil, one of the characters that kind of hangs out in the background and isn't really friendable, but you kind of more interact with them in shops or the museum, which is what I'm actually going to be setting up for my mod, is a couple of campground hosts who are present, and you can talk to them a little bit, but they don't have any lasting effect on the story. Other than that, I felt there should be a character present in that capacity. The other thing you can do is do your full friendable characters, romance characters like Emily or Jody or even Clint, where he's friendable but not a romance, anything in between. And most of those will be determined by which values you have and what you set to true or false. So I'm going to go ahead and get my JSON pulled up here. You can, if you have a smaller mod, you can put this in your content JSON. But what I did is I made an independent JSON and included it in my includes file. And I just named it character data. Some people call it character. Some people call it disposition. I've seen people just name the JSON after the character. Since I have multiple characters in my mod, I have one JSON dedicated to the character data. And I'm going to show you the setup, and then we're going to go to the end and actually set up our characters here. So the first thing you're going to do is your double curly bracket open and close, because you always start and end your JSON file with that curly bracket. Then you're going to do your changes inside the quotes, a colon, a space, and then a pair of open and closed square brackets, because that is setting up. We're changing something, and everything inside the square brackets is going to be what we're changing. We now have a new section, so you're going to do another set of curly brackets open and closed, just in case you make more than one change. If you're doing all your character data in one spot, that lets it know that maybe one bit is character data, one bit is a dialogue, if you chose to do it that way. Again, in my case, pretty much everything is enclosed within that. So you'll see my ending curly bracket, my ending square bracket, and my ending second curly bracket. The next bit, get up to the top again, is you're going to start with your log name. In my case, I did NPC manifest. That way, if anything has a bug in it, that log name will pop up in your SMAPI error log. You'll be able to find it. Action, colon, edit data, which is fairly standard by now. You should all know that. That one is the what are we doing? We're editing data that's in the vanilla. We're editing the vanilla data. Target for character data is target, colon, a pair of quotes, data / characters, just like that. So this is targeting the character data. That is where our changes are going to be applied. Our next field is going to be the quotes with entries in the middle, a colon, and then a new set of open and closed curly brackets. And everything in this section of curly brackets is going to be an entry or addition to, so we're adding a new character to the data characters. So you can see my Father Joseph character is set up here. He is a full NPC, full hearts, full dialogue. He's got events, a birthday, everything. I'm just going to walk through a finished one, and then we'll create the character data for the character I'm going to add. So you would have your internal NPC name. So this is going to be a unique string ID. In this case, I've used my character's first and last name. Some people will use their author name dot character name or their mod name dot character name, something that's going to be unique to your character across the board. If you name your character just Emily, for example, that's not going to work because there's already an Emily in the game and it's going to cause conflicts. So what you might want to do is do NPC Emily or Emily Monroe if her last name is Monroe, for example, something that's going to make your character unique. To my knowledge, there is not another Father Joseph. I did kind of search through the wiki, not the wiki, the Nexus mods. There is another Joseph, but Father Joseph is my internal NPC name, and the other Joseph has a different NPC name, so the game code will never confuse the two. We have your display name, birth season, birthday, home region, and again, we're going to go through all of these when we build a character, gender, age, if they're an adult or child, manner, social aspect, if he's outgoing, extrovert, introvert, optimist, pessimist. He can't be romanced. This love interest field, I'm not 100% sure what it does. So I just put in the name of Father Joseph's late wife, just in case it does something in the future or I learn it does something, then I have a value there that's not going to mess anything else up. Friends and family, this is in game. If like one of those default dialogue lines popped up, have you met my friend George? This has George, and then my string ID has the term friend set to it. Where his home is, what his default spawn area is, what his appearance is. Those of you who are more familiar with appearance data will notice I did not fully set up my appearance data here. That is because my mod uses a config option for the portraits, which I've covered in another video, and I wanted to keep those. I wanted to make sure I wasn't, how do I put this? What are the right words? I wanted to be sure that I wasn't overwriting anything that shouldn't be overridden. So I basically just set the default portrait here, left the rest alone, and did the rest of my portraits in another section in a way I knew would not conflict with my config menu. Breather, like all of these, you'll see all of these are on the NPC data wiki page. And if you set all of them, then you've got the framework for a fully sociable, friendable, romanceable, should you choose to do so, NPC, as well as the Winter Star gifts. So if we go down to the end, I have, oh, that's my, I left notes for myself all over this. So anything you see with this line, a star that's showing up in green, that's a note to myself. In this case, this is what the numerical values actually correspond to on the Winter Star and gift taste that I set up. Oh, that's gift taste there. The other thing, you know what? We'll make a separate video about the gift taste. That'll make a good separate video. Especially since my characters I'm adding aren't going to have a gift taste. Yes, okay, so I'm going to go to the end of this pink curly bracket section, and we're going to set up our next character. Reggie is a pet. I did Reggie this way as a non-friendable NPC because I wanted him to have a schedule and not just run around randomly. There are, I believe, Meep and things out there which are frameworks for setting up pets. I just did it this way because that's what I knew at the time. Same thing with Shep. So we're going to go to the end here. I'm going to start with a pair of quotes. I'm going to have to scroll up and down a little bit to double check this. Okay, so pair of quotes, a colon. I'm going to do an open and close curly bracket. I'm going to tack a colon at the end, not a colon, a comma at the end. This is going to be where we put that unique string ID. Again, this is something I want to make sure is not going to be anywhere else. So what I have been doing is I have been doing first name, last name. Largely because I know a lot of people use their modder ID and whatnot when they do the internal strings. So for me, and should I find out this is in conflict, I will come back in and have to change it. But the first character, we're going to name her... Did I want it to be? Yeah. And I'm going to do 2 characters. I've got, E. And actually, I'm going to add a .mp just to make sure, because the last name Williams is common enough. So MP for Maple Park, that's going to be their living location. And again, the internal name is not going to show up. Oh, not a period, a comma. The internal name is not going to show up in game dialog. What's going to show up is going to be your displayed name right here. So we're going to go inside our quotes. Quotes. Display name, camel case, just like that. Display uppercase N for name. Colon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and do this for each of them as I go. And that way I know I don't miss a field on one and not the other. And then I'm going to go into my default. I have a character data. There it is. This is my translation key. So for when you do a translation key, like if you weren't doing a translation key, you would just type in the first name here, just like that. But since I am, it's going to be a double set of open and closed curly brackets. I, 1, 8, N, colon. Was I doing name? Just change that second Kenna to Jean. And now this is going to come over to our, oh, I want to do MPCD. Trying to make sure I'm using the same naming scheme across the board. So in our disposition page, it's going to be quotes, colon, space, quotes, comma. Yep, that's how I was doing at MPC. So now, when your pop-up box with the dialogue and the character talking, it's going to display either Kenna or Jean, depending on which character you're talking to, spelled just like that. I'll leave this open in case I have another string I have to do. And then this is just how the code is going to reference them. So you can see up here on Shep's TGC and then Shep for the Garden Cottage Shep. I have not been consistent, I admit it. Some of my NPCs are first name, last name. All of the animals are TGC, the animal name, because I didn't have a last name for the animals, and so on. So, defaults. Okay, so this works for Dwarvish. So if you set your language to Dwarvish, the NPC will start with Dwarvish until you get those scrolls. So we're just going to go through here. So we're going to go gender, age, manner. Just go through this basic info until I have everything. Which, if I wasn't doing this in a video, I'd probably just copy and paste from higher up in my sheet. But I want you all to be able to see me do this. So I'm going to pretend I'm doing it. Never done it, but like gender, Kenna is female. It helps if I spell the value correctly. Gender, colon, quotes, male. Exit your quotes, put a comma at the end. If you don't put a comma at the end, it's going to treat it as all one line. You're going to get an error. Age was next. Okay. They are an adult. And your values here are adult or child, because there's some things defaulted into the programming that for reactions based on if they're an adult or child. Oh, no, we want age. Comma. I wonder if I just... Okay. So manner is going to be whether they're usually polite or neutral or rude, kind of a default on some of the lines, how that line is written is hard-coded in. So if you choose manner, then it will choose the correct version of what that is. So for example, if you are digging through the trash cans, the reaction is going to depend both on how you set their trash can response to be, and also whether they phrase it politely or rudely or somewhere in the middle. Social anxiety is going to be also if they tend to be more shy. So you can be shy and rude, or you can be shy and polite. The two things kind of set up. That's just two quotes. Social anxiety. Again, you can copy it right off the wiki to make sure you don't misspell anything if you like. I'm going to say our extrovert adopted an introvert to be her husband. I am an introvert. I have definitely been adopted by extroverts in my life. And I mean that in the best way possible. Optimism. Optimism is exactly what you would think it would be. Are they optimist or pessimist? Or realist? Positive. The other thing I love about VS Code, and you can kind of see it happening here, is because I've already written this code once, when I go to do it the second time, it's offering me drop-down options for autofill. Which is incredibly useful. Birth season, summer, winter, fall, or spring are your options here. When is their birthday? For season, we're gonna say Kenna is a fall baby. And not what I meant to do. And Jean, I feel like Jean's probably a summer child. And then the next bit is, of course, birthday. So on a, I believe it's 1 through 28. We're going to say she is fall 18. I have no idea what other birthdays might be there, but it's fine because she is just a background NPC. I'm not going to put her on the calendars. It's not going to affect anything you don't have to remember. Birthday, summer. I feel like he's a summer 6 person. Don't ask me why. Sometimes I just have a vibe for whatever birthday the character is. Sometimes I choose a number randomly. Depends on what mood I'm in that day. Home region. So this is going to be if they're town, desert, other. So whether if they've set to town, then they're included in some of the quests. Like if the luau feast was good, if they can be selected as a secret Santa, or things like that. Neither of these I don't want either of these to be affected by those because they're not going to be there, A, and B, they live in a completely different area that I've set up. They're the campground host for the Maple Park map that you've seen in my previous videos. So we're going to set the home region to other. Let's see. And that will exclude them from that. Other, oh, need my quotes. Here we are. Now, if I was making either of these romanceable, is dark-skinned, I would set for Kenna and Jean, I would set it to yes. However, they're NPCs, they're married to each other. It's not a worry in this case because the farmer doesn't get to marry either one of them. So I'm just going to leave this one out because there's no point in me including it. If you make an NPC who has dark skin and you want them to be romanceable, if you set the is dark skin parameter to true, then when your toddler sprite shows up in game after the farmer and your NPC have had kids, the toddler sprite will have the darker skin. So that is what that is used for. Okay, so now I'm going to double check this because I'm just doing the basic and I don't remember if I need to put the can socialize in or not. So I'm going to go back up. Okay, so we want can socialize to be false. And that will mean we get to, yes. So like I said, I double check myself against things I've already done. So let me go. So can socialize. So this is the query that indicates whether you've got just a background NPC like Gunther or if it's a truly full friendable NPC. Neither of these NPCs at this point in time are going to be fully friendable. If enough of you all insist on it, like if I get to a version 2 or 3, I might consider doing it then. Right now, they're just background NPCs. And we are going to set this to false because I need to finish the things I already have planned and not let the scope creep get me. Socialize. And okay, so we don't need to worry on, because false can socialize turns a lot of this off. That's default true. Also be can socialize true. So we're going to leave that as false. Calendar. Here we go. So this is going to default to always shown. So what I want to do is make this hidden always, because I don't want them to show up on the calendar and get in the way, because they're not set to a state where that would be useful, and it might actually hide some things from other mods that you would rather have. So we're going to put the calendar in. We're going to set it to always hidden. Hidden always. Oh, what did I just do? Somehow my mouse jumped. I'm glad I just caught that. I don't know if you saw it, but my curly bracket was not, it was up here instead of there, so we want to make sure, because that would have thrown an error back in my face, and I probably would have spent a while figuring out just for a bracket being the wrong spot. What I was doing, oh, I set it to null, that's why he's not, okay. So let me see what else is in here that needs to be on here. Okay, so we also want the social tab set to always hidden, because there's no point in having them on the social tab if they're not friendable. This is all the stuff for a spouse. Neither of these characters are going to be romanceable, so we can skip all of this. Our home region is set to other, so I don't need to worry about setting the introduction quest. If you have your home region set to town, but they are unlocked later, actually a great example of this is Jackie, if I go up to Jackie, because she is a year 2, kind of like Kent, where she is set to town, but you don't get to meet her until year 2. So for her introduction quest, let's see, it's Dawson and Roxanne. So this one should be Jackie. Here we go. So Jackie, I need to make sure that I have introduction quest false, which I do. So once she is unlocked, which happens right here, if you have an unlock condition for your NPC, you can set unlock conditions : another set of quotes, and then you will put your condition statement inside those quotes. And once that condition statement is met, your character will be unlocked. So in this case for Jackie, once you have seen this event, which I have set to trigger on the first snowy day in winter of year 1, then once that event has played, so the player has seen event, and then the event name is Jackie arrives that you have to have seen, then Jackie is unlocked. And after that point, things like Winter Star and Luau, those friendship boosts are then possible. But because she's not there year 1, I don't want her included in the introduction quest. So that is why I set that to false. Back down to our characters we were making. Back to our wiki page. Okay, so that's only doable if they're allowed to socialize, which they are not for a delivery quest. This is if they can set up, like on your bulletin board, if they're set to town and set to socialize, or if you set them to socialize and set this to true, then on the bulletin board you might see things like character needs a banana or character needs a fresh strawberry. Those notices show up on the bulletin board when this is set to true, as long as they're set to socialize. So even if I put this in as true, because they're not set to socialize, my two NPCs that we're making today would not be able to do this. Whether to include, and again with perfection score, if you don't want them included in the max friendship spot, you would set this to false, but they also have to be set to socialize for this to meet the parameters. And again, I don't have to worry about this because my characters are not set for socialize. And in slideshow, I don't really want them with the main group, but I put work into them, so I don't want them excluded either. So we're going to remember to use our quotes. So I'm so glad VS Code color codes things and makes things red because I would forget things. I'm going to include them in the trailing group at the very end of the final slideshow. Comma. Which I think I have all my NPCs hit in the trailing group. And friends and family. So you saw this in the Father Joseph, the friends and family. It's used as a directory with the names so that on the dialogue that reveals likes and dislikes, etc., those parameters would be used. Minute or null, the default depends on age and stuff. I'm just going to leave that as default. They don't need to go to the festivals. They don't need to have Winter Star gifts. I don't need an unlock condition because they're just there and this space is already unlocked. Let's see. Oh, Homefield. Your Homefield is going to be where your NPC spawns in game, and where if there's a bug where they will respawn or things like that. So we're going to enter a Homefield here for our characters so that they, instead of just showing up at the bus stop if something happens, they will spawn in their bed. So I'm going to double check how I did this for home. Home, square, then a curly. I knew it was one of those, and I couldn't remember if it was both or just one. So for your home field, you're going to do the two quotes, you're going to do the home, you're going to do your colon, then your square brackets. You're going to put a comma after the end of your square brackets. Just going to copy that. See if the first matching one is used. So you could, in theory, as I understand this, you could, in theory, somehow put conditions on it so they spawn in different spots depending on what you're doing, because it says the first matching one is used right there. So that tells me, and the fact that it uses both square and the curly brackets means you can potentially have multiple entries here. So it's probably for characters like Leo, where they start out on Lake Ginger Island and then move to the valley, Pelican Town. Somehow I forgot the name of the town. So anyways, we're going to go back inside of our square brackets. We're going to do the curlies. Just like that. Make sure you have it open and closed. And then it is ID. Okay. Okay, so the ID is just a naming thing. It doesn't have anything to do with the locations. We're going to do ID colon. And this is going to be a string for whatever, however you want to describe this. MP kinda ID location tile duration. Not duration, direction. Defaults to up. Okay, so we want location, tile, and direction. And then your condition. If you needed it to be during summer, this character is here, and during winter, this character is there. I should actually go back in and put that on my twins instead of having a zero schedule. You learn things every day. Anyway, that's a task for another time. So I need my brain to work. We're doing location. I'm going to leave that blank for a minute because I need to go look up that location name. So I'm going to back out into my data. I'm going to pull up my locations. See, here we are. So on your locations, you're going to go look at the name that is listed in your target field for your load for that location, because that is going to be your internal name for it. So in this case, I'm not naming it after my map. I am naming it the TGC MP trailer, because that is the name I have assigned to this location. So if you look at its target, maps, dash, and then it's this bit is what I want for setting a location. And then I am going to also go in, I'm going to open tiled, assets, maps, because I need my XY coordinates. Let's see. All right, so I'm not worried about the red boxes. It's because it's not, I opened it from my game file instead of my map making folder. So these link to the files in the game, which Tile does not set up to recognize at this moment. But I'm actually okay with it because it is pulling enough from my map that I made that I can still get roughly where I need. So XY, tile, curly brackets, XY. So it's going to be a pair of quotes, tile, colon, pair of curly brackets, another pair of quotes. You're going to put a capital X inside, a colon, pair of quotes, a comma. Just going to do it with the tabs because it's easier to see. Pair of quotes, a capital Y inside, colon, another pair of quotes, and the comma. So now my XY coordinates. So I want my characters to sleep in their big bed. I'm trying to think of who would. It's going to be funny to put one on the edge and the other in the middle instead of both on the edges. So we're going to put So it's going to be this tile. So 19.5 is where we're going to put Jean. And this way, if anybody manages to get into that trailer when they shouldn't be, they will get to see the joke of Kenna stealing all the covers. 19.5 for Jean. And that is 25. So if you look at where I have it hovered, and you look down in the bottom corner, kind of where that red exclamation point is, you'll see it says 20-5. That is where you look for your tile coordinates, 20-5. So for Kenna, we get 20, and then Y becomes 5. Save. And then back here to see if I have missed anything. Okay, so appearance and sprites. So these are labeled as optional, and this is because of kind of what I was talking about, like with configs and stuff. There's several ways to add in your appearance data. So I will actually trying to decide. Yeah, there's a lot here. Yeah, some of this too is if it's not. So there's default frames in your sprite sheet, like your kiss sprite is always a certain sprite, and your sleep sprite is something you set in your animation data. But things like your kiss sprite, your wedding, the flower dance, those should always be the same frames, no matter which NPC you've built, based on if it's male or female. If you have made it different, like it tells you right here, your default is 28. If you have made it different, you can go in here, you can add this field to your appearance data, and you can tell it which frame it should be, and that way it'll look in the correct spot. So that is what those are for. I'm just going to really quickly see if I have been doing more than the basic. Yeah, I've just been setting the breather and the size and things. I'm just going to copy the breather. Breather is a little square animated in the chest that makes it look like they're breathing. So if you have a child-sized sprite, you may not want them to have the breather, or you actually no, because cut that out. So if you have like an animal sprite, you may not want the breather because it won't be positioned for the animal's body, like with Shep. But in my case, I do want the breather. So we're going to go to the end of home. We're going to find the end of our brackets there. And then we're going to add this breather, and I'm going to set the false to true. Put the same one down here. And then we're going to do, I'm just going to copy it because I'm afraid I'm going to mess this up trying to do it from scratch. So then we're going to add our appearance data. So it's going to be just like we did before. It's our quotes, appearance, and then we're going to do both a square brackets, open and close, and the curly brackets, open and closed. And I've copied this from above, and I'm going to update this portraits, and then your portraits / internal name of the character, characters / internal name of the character. So that is going to tell it that this is always the default for this character, and it's using the internal name that you set up right up here at the top. And if I wanted to add, if I didn't have a config menu, I would do it in here. But if I want seasonal sprites and whatnot, you can set that all right in here with the condition statements, that's why you have the ability to layer these sections. So you could put a comma right there, do that, and then you would do, let's see, this is not normally how I do it, so I have to double check how to do it. You would do like, is island attire? Yes, for the bathing suit. Season, you would add a field that says season, and you would put summer, winter, fall, spring, depending on what season the outfit was for. And then all you have to do is load in by what you've set and do a load with your file name. Kind of like we loaded in the textures and everything in our previous sprite and portrait videos. So I only need, I'm just doing the default. So I'm going to take that out so I don't have things causing problems. And I'm going to copy, again, I'm copying the internal name and replacing that there. Jean. Oh. And you've seen me just mess this up. I did not put in the appearance tag, so it's appearance, colon, and I need a square bracket. And then I need to close that square bracket at the end. So you see it goes square, curly, curly, square. So they're bookended, like when you do math equations. I can close that. Sure. Size optional because Shep was a odd size. You can also add weight. So if you have multiple entries, you can put them in order of preference. Size optional. Sizes bigger than 16 by 32 will cause issues like broken spawning, pathfinding. Anybody beta testing right now, you know this is true because Shep keeps getting stuck on the map where he spawns, and I have to do some fancy stuff to get that fixed, but that is directly related to Shep being a 32 by 32. So we've done the breather. See. That's the index. We don't need the gift log. And we're going to make the gift taste a different video. So I think this is probably a really good spot to stop, actually, because this is your very basic NPC setup. That's what you need just for a Marlin or Gunther style NPC that's on the map, says a few lines of dialogue, and lives in a very general location. And then, of course, you can use the wiki and those charts to get fancier, much like we've got up here with Father Joseph, where you can see I've added all the extra fields down here for the fancier things like being friendable and being on the calendar and being part of the quests, and whether he's a Winter Star participant, things like that. But it's pretty much just following the chart and having your variables set, and they give you right here, they tell you what the defaults are. They tell you right on this chart what the different options are. So for example, up here on the age, child, teen, adult, it's all right there. So you basically remember to close all of your brackets, include everything inside quotes, and it's pretty straightforward. At least I think it is. I hope you all found the video helpful, and until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.